number. Yeah.
When the A-side fighter is around, other fighters become casualties. Harold Graham didn't get his title shot. Marvin opted to fight Leonard. The WBA, they stripped Hagler because Harold Graham was due his title shot, so one belt was gone. The IBF, they didn't sanction it because Sugar Ray Leonard wasn't ranked. Frank Tate and Michael Olajide ended up fighting for the vacant belt. Marvin was reluctant to take the fight, or at least that's what's been said. Leonard got his way with a smaller ring, with bigger gloves, and a 12-round fight, rather than 15. He wisely let the champion and his ego think he was getting over with a $12 million purse in Hagler's favour. Leonard took 11. Leonard took a 12-round decision. Hagler never boxed again. He was that devastated. So Leonard is a free-weight champion. Tommy Hearns becomes a 5-weight champion when he wins the WBO super middleweight title in 1988. It's a newly created belt. Leonard, not wanting to be outdone, he becomes a 5-weight world champion by beating Donnie Lalonde, the light heavyweight champion, and also winning the super middleweight title, which is a vacant belt they threw in, a newly created belt by the WBC. Lalonde, the light heavyweight champion, comes in at 12 stone. He decks Leonard. Leonard gets up and stops him, and he becomes a 5-weight world champion. The purists, they will take shots at Leonard for his gamesmanship or his A-side-ish. He doesn't care. He gets what he wants. He gets the wins, the titles, and the bag.
We get the money, the women, and cold bust the fat tables, boy.
Big number. Yeah.
The A-side fighter is a blatant opportunist. He's a prize fighter. He doesn't play by the rules. He's unapologetic about his objectives. If you, like Ryan Garcia, think you're an A-side fighter, I want to play A-side tactics with another guy who thinks he's an A-side fighter, then you end up conceding the rehydration clause, the rematch clause. Well, you get everything you deserve. Up until a year or so ago, Lou DiBella told Devin Haney that Ryan Garcia is a bigger priority for George Kambosos to fight, and Devin had a strap and Ryan didn't. Ryan had his opportunities. He could have fought Devin for that WBC belt. Devin went over to Australia and beat Kambosos twice, gave up home territory, gave up his free agent status. Post-fight, after getting stopped by a body shot in the 7th, Ryan said if I was more disciplined, he believes he could have done things differently. He's talking about discipline like it's something he could have in his arsenal on the day of the fight. Discipline would have been taking your title shot in 2021 after you fought the Eliminator. Discipline would have been having that tune-up fight this year when the opportunity was there. And even your promoter, as much as people ridicule him, a Hall of Fame fighter, he shared his concerns that Ryan wasn't taking this tune-up fight. And Oscar couldn't really say anything because Ryan would have went on a... Even without giving up concessions to the A-side fighter, Ryan was up against it, against one of the best counter-punchers in the game right now. He was already up against it. Tank is a great counter-puncher. He has the eyes of a Jimmy Paul. You guys won't remember who that was, in terms of seeing opportunities and taking out the target. And his power is comparable to a Roberto Duran. But yet, you came in unprepped. When he was asked if the weight affected him, yeah, I did feel weight drained. You should have said, no, I didn't feel weight drained. You should have said, no. He said, yeah, I did feel weight drained, but it's not an excuse. We don't want to know if you're weight drained if you accepted the terms. One thing, no, well, I respect Canelo a lot. I don't care what nobody says. I didn't used to be a fan, but I've got a lot of respect for Canelo. Now, I don't agree that he was too young. He said he was too young, but I prefer that he said that he was too young when he fought Floyd. He's never brought up the 2-pound discrepancy that he had to concede to get the Mayweather fight. He's never brought that up. And credit due to him. He accepts the terms, and Floyd beat him. You agreed to the terms of the fight, and now you're saying you felt weight drained after, when you was told by people who've been following the sport before you was born that this could possibly have an effect on your performance. So to me, it looks like he went in there looking for a ready-made excuse, and to me, that has loser all about it. You went in there with a losing mentality that I need an excuse beforehand. And that's why I can't gravitate to fighters like Ryan Garcia. I can't. With Tank, I can admire the skill set at least. even though I don't like a lot of other stuff. The skill set and execution is on point, so at least there's some redeeming quality about him as a boxer. Sean Porter gave up a catchweight to Adrian Broner and still beat him. That's self-belief. And he managed to beat Adrian. Canelo had that self-belief against Floyd. It didn't work out. Chad Dawson had that belief against Andre Ward. It didn't work out. At least they had a resume, a body of work to suggest, yo, I've got belief in myself. What would lead you to believe that Ryan believed he could fight Tank Davis by potentially handicapping himself? Takes two to tango. Takes two to tango. I like the way Ryan was fighting before he was dropped in the second. I do. Throwing his hands, roughing Tank up, throwing him about the place, using his forearm. The moment he got tagged with that left hook, though, he realized that everything they said about Tank being on another level to him was true. And reality sank in right there. He didn't believe in himself. A lot was being made about Ryan Garcia's speed. I didn't really understand what they were talking about. I didn't understand it. Now, if we're talking about them combinations, he does when he's working out. He's never done that in a fight. His left hook is a decent punch, but he didn't know how to walk down Tank and land it, and he couldn't land it at range. Some of them landed, but the frequency wasn't there. He just didn't have the consistency. He did use his right as well in the fight, which was encouraging against Tank. But he said it himself after. He should have been hitting and moving. He should have been hitting and moving. Tank Davis is how tall? 5'3". What do you think he wants you to do? He wants people to try and trade with him. He wants you to try and trade. Oh, I should have hit and move after. I should have hit and move. Listen. Go and get that discipline that you said you needed to carry out the tactics to win. Go and get that. Go grovel back to Eddie Reynoso to let you back in the gym. And tell Canelo you're sorry. Humble yourself. Or this boxing thing for Ryan is just going to be very difficult. Joe Goosen, you know what I mean? Like, Joe Goosen did his thing. He did his thing. He's not a current trainer right now. He's good if you want to go to his gym and get fit and stuff like that. And maybe boxers who were just starting, he could give them some great pointers. But at this level, at this period of time, no. No. You went to Joe Goosen from Eddie Reynoso. No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You're going backwards. Bad miss from Ryan. And look the way he turns. The way he keeps turning to his left is going to be a problem. Ryan gets countered there with two body shots. Tank should have come up with the right uppercut there. Yeah, Ryan made some mistakes defensively. Like, he didn't know how to roll the left hand. And the way he was turning away from the shot was almost novice amateur level for a pro fighter. And that's down to Ryan and Joe Goosen. Joe Goosen's got to take some of that. Why that's still happening at this stage of his career. After the knockdown, he started doing that. And done it a couple of times. And the second time he done it, I believe in the sixth, he got himself in a whole load of trouble. Rather than moving to the side of the attacks or keeping his hands up, he turned away and left himself in no man's land and got hit by a whole load of body shots. And he was losing his shape. Concentration was falling apart early as the 4th, 5th round. And this is because he never took boxing serious enough, at least at the level he's fighting. And to be honest, he's done well to get this far for someone who, in my opinion, doesn't take it that serious. You want to be a serious fighter now? You want to be disciplined now? No, I mean, how are you going to come out and say, if I was more disciplined post-fight? You should have been disciplined before the fight. The last thing you should have been losing the fight on is discipline. Now, if you can't take the punches, or if you're not as good as Tank, that's fair enough. But discipline shouldn't have been a factor here. You should have been disciplined where you wouldn't be losing your shape by the 4th round of a fight. This is supposed to be elite level. When you're in a tough fight against the likes of Tank, you've got to start doing your checks and balances about the things you can control. Because, look, Tank has elite skills. Whether anyone wants to hear that or not, he has elite skills. Anything that is in your control is something you want to tick off. And discipline is one of them. Being disciplined to stick to a game plan. If the tactics were stick and move, what happened? How you analysing post-fight, that's what you should have been doing. When anyone could tell you, why are you going to be punching with the hooker, the shorter armed hooker, why are you going to be punching with him? He said he didn't want to make it a boring fight. Often people say that, oh, I didn't want it to be a boring fight. But the truth is, he said it himself. Like, the discipline, it takes a lot of discipline for a lot of the boxers who they boo and say are boring. It takes a lot of discipline to be able to fight behind that jab, to be able to try and make it difficult for your opponent to land his best punches. That takes discipline. To shut the crowd out and do what you've got to do, that takes discipline. You know, it sounds good. I didn't want to make it a boring fight. But the truth is, Ryan wasn't prepped to do anything else than what he did. When Tank had to tie up or get out of dodge, he did it. He did it. That's focus. Discipline. Take your tune-up fight. Get a southpaw. He might not replicate Tank Davis, but what did I say? Whatever's in your control, you should be handling. And that's in your control. Take the tune-up fight. Tank's fight wasn't even a tune-up. He fought a fucking reigning super featherweight champion with a really good statistical record. That's not a tune-up, by the way. It's not a tune-up. A lot of people really don't get what the considered standards of yesterday or yesteryear were compared to today. That's not a tune-up. That's an actual fight. Ryan's promoter said you're going to regret it. Even Tank said you're going to regret not taking the fucking tune-up. He was supposed to fight Masita Jester, a southpaw. But in hindsight, he might well have lost that fight, to be honest, because like Jester's coming off 2 wins against Jojo Diaz. 2 wins that are better than anything Ryan's got in his record. Apart from Luke Campbell, I guess. I'm not sure if Luke is better than Jojo. Jojo's fought the tougher opposition. Probably got the better win. I'd say Jojo's the better fighter. But yeah, look. That's not really a tune-up either. That's an actual fight. That's an actual fight. But let's say he took that fight. It's not a tune-up. Neither was Tank's. But let's say Ryan fought Jester. No, he can't replicate Tank as a southpaw. No. But this is what gives you confidence. You do them rounds with a southpaw. After the W, you go back to the gym and say, boy, the southpaws didn't really know they do this, they do that, they do that in an actual fight situation. So when you're fighting Tank, when you're trying to escape his left hand, maybe you don't turn away from him and you learn how to defend it adequately, properly, because you've taken the steps to address the faulty defense technique. Because, yo, guess what? I ain't a boxing coach, but you don't need to be a boxing coach to know you don't turn away from your opponent so you can't see what he's doing. You're not facing your opponent. You can't see him when you've turned away. I pointed it out on my live when I was watching the fight. I didn't need Teddy Atlas to tell me that, yo, that's not correct technique. Yeah, just to beat Jojo. Jojo's a southpaw. Guess who else was supposed to fight Jojo and pulled out? Ryan. Every ounce of criticism he's getting and that he's seeing on social media, he needs to own it. He needs to own it. Because that's the only thing that can wake him up. If you watch closely, it's not just the body shot that takes him out. There's a left hand that gets through, a hard left hand to the head. And I think that could be when Ryan's nose started to bleed. And then the left hand followed up shortly after. What's the future for Tank? I don't know. How am I supposed to answer that? He doesn't respect the sanctioning belts. And I don't respect the sanctioning bodies, but he don't respect that. And more importantly, he doesn't respect the boxers who go out and earn them sanctioning belts. Undisputed, unified. He doesn't respect that. He doesn't respect them, and he doesn't respect the philosophy of that. They have to come and tell me what the future is. I can't predict anything. I can't say, okay, he should unify against this champion. He should move up and fight this champion and that contender. Because they are rogues. Because they're rogues. They don't play by that. Whether people like it or not, I'm not a fan of Leonard Ellaby. He's done a tremendous job on their objectives, which is the A side of boxing. Great PR, propaganda. Make sure they're stubborn on their principles and their demands. Promotion. I mean, Tank's fought in 2 weight classes recently, where there's been undisputed champions. And he hasn't even given them a second thought. Now, Devin was in the audience, and Showtime was told not to film Devin. Don't film him. This is about Tank, the only lightweight in the game. Forget Devin Haney, he doesn't exist. How can you make a fight like this, right? And you don't reference Lomachenko, Devin Haney as future fights? How can I predict anything for Tank? Let Tank do what Tank's doing. It's no point me getting angry about it. I want to see Devin versus Lomachenko. That's the fight I want to see at 135 for undisputed. Tank, Floyd, who everyone thought was out the picture, they're back. Tank, Floyd, and Leonard, they're going to do it their way. You see, I spoke about Sugar Ray Leonard being an A-side fighter. The difference between Tank and Sugar Ray is he needed the Super Four. He needed Hearns, he needed Duran, he needed Hagler, and he needed Benitez. He needed all these guys. And he would tell you today, I needed them to become great. Tank is bypassing all his peers. Did they mention Shakur Stevenson in that broadcast as a potential fight? Loma, Haney, Stevenson, not spoken about. You know, Floyd no longer his promoter. I guess he's just there to support. Or do they still have a working relationship? I'm not sure. But Floyd is his mentor. Before Money Mayweather is Pretty Boy. He's often held responsible for the modern day A-side fighters. He's definitely responsible for Tank. But even in his day, what would Floyd have been without Oscar De La Hoya, Arturo Gatti, Zab Judah, Diego Canales, Hernandez, Mosley? He fought his peers. Manny Pacquiao. Tank not fighting his peers. And is apparently the face of boxing. You know, Oscar was on the paperwork. He was an A-side fighter. You might hear a few people say, oh, Oscar didn't fight Winky Wright. I tell you who he did fight. He fought Jorge Paez, John Molina, all good fights from his era. Gennaro Hernandez, first man to put an L on Hernandez's record. Jesse James Lear, Darrell Tyson, Julio Cesar Chavez, Pernell Whitaker, Hector Camacho. I'm naming all of them because they're all good fighters. Ike Corti, Obakar, Felix Trinidad, Daryl Coley, Shane Mosley, Arturo Gatti, Fernando Vargas, Shane Mosley, Felix Sturm, Bernard Hopkins, Ricardo Mayorga, Floyd Mayweather, Steve Forbes, Manny Pacquiao. And there's losses there. Oh yeah, there's losses. There's also some very great fights. There's some great wins. If you look at the way that Floyd has managed Gervonta Davis's career compared to his own, and you look at the way that Oscar has maneuvered Ryan Garcia compared to how he was maneuvered, it's like night and fucking day. How comes you both fought hard opposition, tough opposition, beat ATG fighters, but you don't want your fighters to do it? Maybe because they've been to the top and they know how hard it is. Post-fight, usual boxing debate, did Ryan quit? Well, quitting, you know, people put it down to heart, desire, but if you're unprepared for what's ahead, quitting can be a viable option. It can be. Not always, but it can be. So it's not that relevant a question to me personally, but it has to be asked. Did he quit? Looks like he could have got up, but what would you expect from a kid who came into the biggest fight in his life trying to wing it? Not really prepped for the moment. Let me just say this. Early in the game on YouTube, I'd done a video which the Boxing News magazine definitely 100% saw, and they replicated the concept of the video because we were discussing quitting in the YTBC. BK Warrior brought it up about Duran quitting against Sugar Ray Leonard and about not being able to redeem yourself. And I made a video in opposition to that. And I showed how Vitaly Klitschko came back from quitting against Chris Bird. Duran came back from quitting against Sugar Ray. And I used a few more examples. And the Boxing News, they done their own version. Yeah, 100% copied it. But no big deal. I was chuffed they thought my content was worthy of being plagiarized. Cool. I've been buying that magazine since I was a kid. And Tony Bellew is wrong. He's wrong. If Ryan goes away and studies his craft, matures as a man, he might have resolution in adverse situations that he didn't have on Saturday. If he's more prepped as a boxer, mentally as much as tactically, that might not happen again. We'll see. Then he was asking, do we want to see this again? No. No, we don't. He has to reestablish himself. He's got to come back hard.
And when you come back, you better come back even harder. Praise to the man upstairs, just the father.
I'll be honest. I used to be a massive fan of Tank, but if he wasn't doing the A-side manipulation in the game, someone else would. Doesn't make it right, but it does make it boxing. And as much as people want to voice their disapproval, rehydration clauses, not fighting the likes of Lomachenko, Devin, etc., let's not pretend that A-side boxing politics is one of the biggest components in modern day boxing. Let's not pretend that's not a reality. And while it's here, at this moment, Tank is playing the A-side boxing politics game as good as anyone doing it currently. Is he the face of boxing? No. He is one of the faces, though. Whether anyone, doesn't want to hear that or not, he is one of the faces. There are a lot of people talking about Tank and Ryan in the UK. And there's not many fights outside the UK that have Britain talking. They were talking about this fight. Tank is exploiting a void in American boxing, where they haven't been able to get fights like AJ and Wilder across the line for undisputed, Spence and Crawford. A lot of fights that should have happened across the pond haven't happened because of networks, egos, politics, rivalries, and he's took advantage of that. And he is arguably the most popular American boxer right now, ahead of Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. Globally, Wilder got his clock cleaned by Tyson Fury a couple of times. He done 75,000 against Helenius. His stock has dropped. Tank and Ryan, I believe they sold out the T-Mobile Arena. What's that, around 20,000? I don't want to quote the pay-per-view numbers yet. I want to get a few more sources. But from what is coming out, looks like it done a big number. Big number.
Big number. Yeah.
I could make a disclaimer on here and say, yeah, I prefer Devin Haney. I do prefer Devin Haney. But what difference is it going to make? Because when I say what I'm going to say now, I know it's going to come back from a lot of people, but it's almost like you're trying to point the finger at me like I have a hand in boxing business, and I don't. But, this is not an emotional argument. But the facts are, the winner of Lomachenko and Devin Haney, they could have 5 or 6 belts and be undisputed. They can't ask for 50-50 with Tank right now. They can't. Not with that number I'm seeing for the Garcia fight.
Big number. Yeah.
It's a wrap. I don't care who it is. And there's a lot of fights I like, from 135 to 140. But if they want a Tank fight, they're going to have to make sacrifices. You can't get 50-50. How much do you want it? If you want to be a star around the 135 or 140 division, if you don't see Tank, it's not going to happen for you. Until he's beaten, this is how it's going to remain. Devin couldn't do what Tank is doing. Cherry pick, demand conditions in his favor for his rivals. He couldn't do that. You know why? Tank knocks people out. He knocks them out. Yeah, Tank put his hands on women, but so did other great fighters who I'm not going to mention. So did other great fighters. And you know what they did? They knocked people out. They put bums on seats. Yeah, if you're talking about one of the faces of boxing, it's Tank Davis. Yeah, the short guy knocks people out. The casuals don't understand unifications, mandatories, and the historical importance of undisputed. They don't get that. Who's the face of 135? I know you want to say it's Devin. I'd like to say it was Devin. I know you want to say that. But you come to this part of the globe and talk about lightweights and don't mention Tank and see what kind of debate you get. Who's the best 135 pounder or 140 pounder for that matter, if you want to go there? Who's the best? Well, let's stay with lightweight for the moment. Unless you don't know better, there's no real debate. But if you know the rankings, the interim champions from the full tier champions, there's really no debate. Of course Devin is undisputed Ring Magazine champion. Of course.
You think I don't know that?
I know that. You think I'm doing weeklies and I don't know who's the top guys in the weight class. I know Devin's top. I know Lomachenko's ranked higher than Tank. That's not the perception in the entertainment world, though, and the sporting world. Tank's the guy. Saturday's fight was bad news for Golden Boy. Bad news. Bad news. They've got big repair jobs to do on Ryan Garcia. That car's going to be in the garage and body shop for a while. Jaime Munguia. The car appears to be in good shape, but it doesn't like the open road. Virgil Ortiz. Good car. Can't get it on the road. Keeps breaking down. Got all these medical conditions. Bad. I don't know if Ryan has the heart to fight back from this. I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to retire. I don't think he's going to retire. He definitely ain't going to retire. But the sacrifice that Ryan has to make to come good than what we saw Saturday may just be a little over his pain threshold. Tank's just naturally tougher. Because Ryan did hit him with some of them shots. And okay, you might say the rehydration may have took something off the punches. You could argue that. But anytime Tank felt uncomfortable, he clinched on, he held on. Tank actually moves around the ring more than Devin. But Devin hasn't scored a knockdown for fucking ages. As soon as Tank gets sight of the target, something's on the canvas. Every time. Every time. Tank ain't going to let his rivals in the game by fighting them. The only way they're going to displace Tank is if he loses or they start selling more tickets, score more knockouts than him. That's the strategy they got over there. And right now, it's a winning strategy. You don't have to like it, but this fight here has transcended him into another bracket in terms of an entertainer. Whoever wins out of Lomachenko and Haney, is Bob really going to swallow his pride and take B-side to somebody with a second-tier belt when his fighters have got all 4 straps? I know a lot of the boxing fans are going to be on the side of the undisputed champions, saying, no, you don't take B-side to Tank. But the financial logistics say something different. Don't know what to say.
Big number. Yeah.
Only negatives are his legal issues. That could slow the train right down if he's in jail. And let's say he can pull some strings and stay out of the can. How long can he keep this Tank show going without fighting Haney, Loma, Shakur? Let's say he moves up to 140, not fighting Prograis, Taylor, etc. How long can he keep that going?